something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? Hope you're having a pretty good sort of a Friday. Life here on the farm is kind of laid back and then kind of not. For those of you that are remotely interested, the paw is still in a poor state, although now I have managed to secure the cloth a little bit better that's keeping the half cast on my arm with gaffer tape. What else would you use? God, I do like a bit of gaffer. I nearly said I do like a bit of gaffer in the morning, but that could just sound a bit weird. Tonight, I had planned to bring you the man himself, Sean Ambrose, who has some very interesting international sorts of news to tell us. But unfortunately, Sean has called in, well, not sick. He's been working all week, and it's the job that he's in is a pretty intense sort of a job, and it's a very hot job, I guess is the way to describe it. And he's just had a bit much of the heats today. I think he's worn himself out. So not tomorrow. Do a show tomorrow morning, depending. I have to go and see a doctor about this in the morning to get a referral to go and get a new cast on Monday. I don't know where that's going to put me for Monday night's show yet, because I don't know what time they're going to do this. So that'll be a message in motion come Monday, probably off the phone if we're not going to have a show. But I'll bring you all the joy of getting a new cast put on my arm if you'd like, and maybe see whether or not they're going to let me take a baby Joey into the hospital to get it done. I mean, I won't take it out of the bag. Not planning on letting it touch anything, so there shouldn't be any issues, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. News on the Joey. Josie, we're calling her at the moment, because Pick is, well, my pick to call it, but that was short for toothpick. There is a reason for that. One day we'll get into it. I think I did tell you, one of the dogs brought this baby to me in its mouth. Not a mark on it. Not a mark on it. He was so gentle. And we're assuming he found it on the ground. The mother may have been close, although if the baby was out of the pouch, it was only just to have a wee. It's very small, and they usually only come out just for that. The mothers don't then have to clean the pouch out. And there is a little way you can make them wee and poo. And speaking of that, I have never been so happy to have shit in my shirt, because I've got to tell you, I was a little bit concerned about the amount of feed that I was getting into Josie. She was taking not nearly enough. She was getting some, but not nearly enough. Well, that all changed today. We've rejigged a couple of little things. We've made a bigger hole in the teat, which probably made some difference, but she's actually now cottoned on to the teat and the taste, I guess, of the change of milk. Today, in her first feed this morning, she took about 20 mils, and that was at 6:30. No, about 6 o'clock this morning. At 10 o'clock, she took 50 mils, and at 2 o'clock, she took 60 mils. In between the 50 and the 60, we've had her back in her pouch, obviously. I had her in one of my Tasmanian flannelette shirts because they're beautiful and warm. There's a little warming pad underneath her as well to keep the whole thing beautifully warm inside. And we pulled her out to let her have a wee and all that sort of thing before the third feed, if you like. And a huge crap, a huge crap. So we cleaned her up because you can't leave them covered in their own feces because it burns them. So we cleaned her up, threw the shirt in the washing machine, and she took in another 60 mil very happily. She is about to have her next feed, and I fully expect she'll take probably another 40 to 60 mil there too. So ordinarily about this age, you would expect them to take somewhere between 30 and maybe 50 mils. So the fact that she didn't get too much yesterday and has really made up for it today, I'm really happy with. Her skin is beautiful. If you're looking for little animal husbandry tips here, if you ever happen to have a little Joey, you test dehydration in little Joey's the same way as you test it on yourself, by pinching the skin. And I don't mean pinching it to a point of hurt. You pinch it, lift it up, and see how fast it drops back down. Her skin is beautifully hydrated at the moment after those big drinks. She was a little bit dehydrated this morning, and that's why we were starting to get a bit concerned and went to work on the bottle and the teat and everything else to try and get more in there. She became a lot more compliant to using the teat as well today, and that's an ongoing process, because they're not used to the rubber teats. They're a different shape, probably a different length to what Mum has, and the milk certainly tastes a bit different. So, it's a little journey for us all. We are having a bit of fun. It's like somebody's pulled up at my house for some reason, and I'm loving it. What can I say? So she's out with some people at the moment, about to get another feed, and hopefully she'll have another good sleep. I'll give her another feed around 10 or 10:30 tonight, and then we'll see how she goes. She didn't want to feed yesterday morning I think it was about 2:30. I played with her for a better part of an hour trying to get her to play and eat or drink, as the case was, and she just wasn't interested. But she was certainly hungry at first feed this morning, took 20 mil in, and then we just kept on 15, 20 mil this morning first feed, and then just kept growing through the day. So for those of you that are keeping track of Josie the Wallaby, at this point in time, thank God, thank you to your prayers, she is doing really, really, really well. We're all terribly chuffed. Speaking about really, really well, we've got a bloke that we love to invite in on a Friday because he's very, very good at waving his hand wildly into the ether. Of course, I'm talking about the madman from South Australia himself, Vincenzo. How are you, buddy? Oh, we're very special. A double-handed wave tonight. Very nice. And you've got your white hat on.
I have indeed.
Can't quite read it, and microphones are there for a reason. Speak.
Yeah, well, it just has one letter on it. It says Q.
There you go. Oh yeah. Well, you showed us the wrong side of it. Now I can see it. Very good. Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you would bring up Q, because this weekend seems pretty interesting. Here's an interesting thing. The Q clock ended on October the 25th. POTUS, EBS alert countdown has begun. Deep State Rothschild banking empire going down. Banks closing. Blackout confirmed. Let's start. So what do you think? What do you think about the last week? I mean, your little stash of silver has gone up and gone down and gone back up. Current prices, gold today took a little bit of a tumble, and now it's picked up again. Silver also went down to below $50 for the first time in a couple of weeks. It's now back above $50. It's $50.05. Silver dropped down to 4,100. I want to say 68 I saw earlier today. It's now at 4,196, about to go through the $4,200 barrier again. I actually sent a text off to Cass and asked her, why did we see this drop of, over $2 in silver and a lot more than that in gold? And she had two words for it: market manipulation.
Yeah, there's another two. Share my screen.
Share. Well, that's three words, but yeah, good try.
Okay, well, that's the point. Who's counting? That's the reason why it dropped.
Oh, we better start explaining
953 million or billion, I can't remember whether it was million, I think it was million, fell off of the stock market today.
Holy crap.
All right. So you can see things there like Apple dropped 1.82%. NVIDIA went down 4.72%. Microsoft dropped 6.05%.
Wow.
in their share ratings. So there was a massive
Meta
dip
down
in the market
4%,
today.
Google down nearly 2%, Amazon down nearly 1.5%, Tesla down 3%. Wow, that is some huge drops. And Nvidia have been hit extremely hard in the last 3 months. They've lost, well, what now must be multiple trillions of dollars worth of value out of the market.
Yep.
Because they were at hundreds of billions of dollars a little while ago, $600 or $700 billion worth of losses over the last 3 months from Nvidia, which is interesting because I'm real interested to see what's tied up with that for it to be hit so hard. So what were your thoughts today? Did you go to the bank and get some cash out?
No, I've been fixing people's computers today. So
well, making cash is a good thing.
Yeah, that helped.
But I know a lot of people went to the banks today on the back of a lot of the news that's coming out of America. I think the news that's coming out of the States at the moment is confusing, and I think it's confusing by design. I've had a very interesting video sent to me this afternoon, which I haven't completely looked through, and I was going to play a portion of it for you, but I haven't been able to edit it out yet. It puts forward a very interesting scenario for the election. Certainly I have believed that we weren't going to get to an election for all this year. I thought that they would have to stop the fix before it was fixed again. It appears now that that isn't the case. There is cheating going on, blatant cheating, wide in the open cheating going on in all of the big swing states in America and quite a few others. Illegal immigrants are being arrested for dumping hundreds or thousands of illegal ballots into locked ballot drop boxes in places like Arizona and Georgia and Michigan. And all of those lock boxes or drop boxes are locked. I think it's at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and they are not open again until 8 o'clock in the morning. You cannot just walk up after 8 and slip it in to the slot. Well, apparently these illegal aliens, in each case, that have been caught with multiple ballots, all of whom are in favor of Kamala Harris, have had keys to unlock those ballot boxes and put, stuff would be a better word, stuff those ballots inside. So the Marines, interestingly, have been the ones who have been doing this work and arresting those people. That's a military arrest. And, well, I did show you, I don't know, was it last night or the night before? Let me show you again. There is some very interesting things happening in the capital, in and around the capital of Washington, D.C. So did you have a look at his back? What's that in the middle there? What are those bleachers doing there? So, what do you make of that, buddy?
It's the inauguration stands, and for the watching of a parade, they do it every 4 years. It's nothing unusual.
I've never seen them set it up in November. Inauguration.
No, they did start early. They usually start on the 1st of November, but they started early this time. So,
I've not quite been able to zoom in on the item of particular interest for me in all of that, but it doesn't look like a dais in the middle of all of that. It looks like a gallows.
Yeah.
And
no, I don't think there's anything nefarious there, but there's plenty of other nefarious stuff happening.
Well, I'd like to know what they are out in front of the White House.
That one I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. What if the inauguration stands, as you call them, are actually the public trial stands?
Well, there's a few that could probably go up on trial, I reckon. Just saying. But
the entire Congress, everyone who voted on January the 6th, 2021 to ignore the laws and the rules.
Yeah, 2020.
No,
yeah.
January 6th,
Yeah,
2021.
You're right. 21. Yeah, you're right.
They ignored the laws and the rules about ratifying the election.
Yep.
Everyone who voted not to do the right thing committed treason that day, including Mike Pence. Just so.
Yeah. Well, alternative electors is allowed, and if you go back through that, that was half of the argument. But what I am actually more interested in is what will happen this time around. So what's your predictions if Kamala wins and if Donald Trump wins? What is your predictions? And he froze for half a second, so I don't know if he got that question. I'll just wait for him to come back. But he's still not there. Okay, guys, in the chat, what do you think will happen? Right, let's say Kamala wins. What do you think will happen? Okay, you're back, mate. You dropped off for about 10 seconds there.
Yeah. So, Colonel, you don't think they're going to put the gallows right there? Why not? They're going to be public hangings, mate. Where else would you put them?
No, you got to remember that it's still got to go through all the
out in front of the Capitol for those trials, and you'll get 1 million out in front of the White House to watch them hang. So laugh your ass off, Colonel, all you like. Keep your little thoughts to yourself, maybe, or spread the mind a little bit. What do I think will happen? I think there is a high chance Section 14 or Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is going to be employed. And maybe the Colonel can tell us what that is, as he's got great ideas. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment will allow the Democrats on January the 6th, 2025, to annul the presidential win of Donald Trump in November, because, as you've heard them call him all this year and last year, and basically the 2 years before that, they have referred to him solidly as an insurrectionist. What they're going to do on January the 6th is annul him as a president under a law and an amendment, the 14th Amendment, Section 3, where they can stop somebody who has been, I assume, found guilty of insurrection. He's never been found guilty of insurrection. He's never been charged with it or anything like it. But that won't stop the Democrats from doing it. And in fact, they're bragging about it right now. And what they think is going to happen is exactly what will happen if they do that. And this one Democrat who has been telling the story, and he's a leader in the House, says that come January the 6th, we all get many, many, many more bodyguards. We get a lot more guns because there will be civil unrest in this country like you've never seen before. Yep. Because that will trigger a civil war.
And the army will not be following the orders because they will just come out on that side of the Republic, which is he was the duly elected president. And as of January the 6th, he would have been sworn in. So.
No. January the 6th isn't the swearing in date. January the 6th is the day they ratify the votes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. January 20th. Yeah. Count. Sorry. Yep. Yeah. My apologies.
So that is going to be key. What can Trump do in the interim as a president-elect? Not very much. Of course, the Biden-Harris administration will be cleaning house right now. They'll be trying to put in as many deep state plants as they possibly can into the bureaucratic side, the administration side, that Trump won't be able to dig out, or it'll take him 4 years to find them and dig them out like it did last time, and essentially give him not much choice going forward with what's happening in the elections. So I think that that's a very significant possibility, that if he wins in a landslide, as is expected on next Tuesday, then they're going to play hardball coming up January the 6th, and they're going to try and tar him as an insurrectionist. And under that, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, they can do that. If I imagine they have to show proof of it, though, but they probably don't. What I'm concerned about, though, or what I'm questioning there is the Democrats currently don't have the numbers in the House or the Congress to push much forward. So that could change with the switching, with this election, because half the House is up for election as well. So should the balance of power swing back to the Democrats, then you will see that happen on January the 6th, 2025, I think.
Okay. So what happens if Kamala wins?
The civil unrest comes a lot sooner.
From reason why? Why would it come sooner?
Well, if the people don't see the military stand up, because essentially anybody on our side of the argument believes that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump, and we have the proof to prove that it was indeed stolen from Trump. I just got myself banned off Facebook or YouTube or whatever for saying that again.
Oh, if we're going to do that, then let's do it properly with 2,000 Mules. Great fictional story.
Yeah,
Not so much fiction.
Yeah, great fictional story, that 2,000 Mules. There'd be a lot more than 2,000 this time around. That's how hard they are trying to rig this friggin' election. So if the military don't stand up, and I can see no reason why they wouldn't at the first and slightest opportunity that the media takes to declare the win, like they did for Biden. The count was 3 hours old and they declared the win for Biden. How could you do that? Seriously. So, well, they knew what was coming overnight, obviously. So when they shut down the counting houses and all the ballots got stuffed. So last election, as Ian is saying in the chat, the ballots were watermarked. They were 100%, and they were watermarked in such a way that they had a non-radioactive isotope in them, and they could be tracked. So the White Hats knew exactly where every ballot went, whether it went to a bin, whether it went to a bucket, whether it went to a house, along with 55 or 1,005 others, and then left that house in a group and got deposited somewhere into a ballot postal box. So I think it's highly possible that, well, the election was stolen. The military knew it was stolen. And if you look at the flags, if you understand doctrine, the military code of conduct, then you would probably believe, as I do, that President Trump has actually been a wartime president for the last 4 years and working behind the scenes. And we've been watching this terrible movie play out. And I don't know, how many times have we seen the masks fall off and gaping holes and yada, 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 yada. So I think that's half a chance. It's going to be a very interesting little time.
Yeah, well, the way I see it, right, there's three things that can happen on November the 5th or there, just shortly thereafter. One is that Kamala wins, and God help the country then, for that's the end of it, and BRICS will then take its full stand and move forward. But if she wins, that win has to be so clean, as in not showing fraudulent voting, not showing whatever, and it has to be proven to the Republic side.
No, it doesn't.
For there to be peace. Hang on, let me finish. For there to be peace, right? So they don't revolt. If she wins and it is not clean, which is pretty obvious because it's not clean already, there's been a lot of videos coming out where I've just gone in to vote for the first time, and I can't because I've already voted. But I never voted before in my life, right? And another guy just went in. I went to vote. Oh, I can't because I've already done a mail vote, so I had to do an affidavit saying that I didn't accept the vote and whatever, a proxy vote type thing. That's already happening. So there's heaps and heaps of that already showing up. So that will mean that if she wins and there's fraud abundant, which it obviously looks like it's going to be, this is the one time where I don't think that the Republicans and the Republican followers are just going to take it. I think that's the breaking point. That's the line in the sand.
What are they going to do about it?
Civil war proceeds.
It would have to be civil war, but why spend the last 4 years getting to that point? We could have had that 4 years ago and be 4 years through it by now and be back on track. Why do we have to go through another 4 years?
Because we're rational thinking people?
No. We might be, but
we're not the other side. We're not the other side who runs on emotion.
We're not the problem. They are.
Yeah, but they're the same. They have the same sort of at us. Okay, 4 years. So I believe they're more rational. And their commander-in-chief said, no violence, peacefully, quietly. Right? So they did that, and they were fighting it via the legal terms. Now, they know now after 4 years that's not going to work. So this time, I think their line's in the sand. And if Trump does win and everything's hunky-dory, well, we know the other side is going to riot, period, because they're emotionally based.
Yes. So if Trump wins on the night, we're going to see riots that will be breaking out in multiple cities around America. But I think what you'll see is as those riots are starting to form out of the ground, from under buildings and possibly from the air, the National Guard are going to arrive on the streets.
Well, one would hope, but understand that Trump, unless he has been running that secret war for the last 4 years, right? He can do nothing. He can't call out the army. He can't call out the National Guard.
Hang on, Vince. The thing that people are getting confused, and you're obviously confused with this point, Trump isn't running the military. The military are running this operation. Trump is beneath the military. Trump was installed by the military, although he had to win the election himself. But he is the commander-in-chief, but we are in wartime. It's been declared. So the military control it. The president just stamps it. He doesn't make military decisions. He doesn't make operational decisions. The military.
Yes, but he's the one that's got to give the authority to deploy.
He gave the authority to deploy while he was president in 2016. And put out the executive orders, 13818, 13951, or whatever it is. Those orders are already in place. The military have been in charge this whole time, particularly since January the 6th, 2021. Just think back to the inauguration of Joe Biden. When have you ever in the history of inaugurations of American presidents know it to start 14 minutes early? When have they ever used green screen to introduce former presidents who were supposedly at the event? But all of a sudden, we've got these godlike video figures with the Capitol in the background, how wonderful the whole Democratic Party is. And the two major telling things for me after the inauguration was that 90% of the military that lined the streets from the Capitol back to the White House as the Biden family traveled back there, turned their back on the presidential motorcade. And if that's not enough for you, they turned up at the White House, were closed. There were two full-dress Marines standing at the door. They just stood at the door. The Bidens had to open the door themselves, where there was no crowd of people to welcome them and say, hello, we're your staff. They just walked into an empty house.
Yeah, there's
Do you-
been other evidence as well. Like you've seen officers, when they're doing anything relative to that, not wearing their medals, not wearing their honours,
Yep.
which is something else that I've noticed as well. But
Have you
it's
noticed,
hard.
Victoria? Have you noticed there are police in Australia who are acting as police with no police insignia and epaulets?
Yeah, because they're not actually police. They're using that part of the law where they can bring in a foreign thing to quell unrest.
That's what they're
While
going to
they
try
wear
and
a
do.
police
Sure,
flak jacket, they're not actual police.
I would
So-
agree. I would agree. So that makes them what? Illegal combatants?
No, they're quite legal according to maritime law. It's written into the legislation. What I call them is bloody terrorists, but that's another thing.
Well, I could tend to agree. Now, tied up with all of this, of course, is the great financial reset, Nasara Jassara, the end of the SWIFT and fiat system, the introduction of a free market, for the want of a better term, and, of course, BRICS is going ahead in full swing. And another announcement today that another, I think, 40-odd nations have joined the BRICS Plus Friendship Group, taking the total number to about 150 of 194 nations that have now signed on to the BRICS way of doing things. If you haven't caught up with what BRICS are doing, and they are heavily involved in Bitcoin and crypto, the BRICS, all BRICS countries, and they are backing it with gold and silver. So market manipulation, market pressures are certainly what's keeping the prices of silver down at the moment. But I've led to believe at least 6 banks have come out in the last 24 hours or so and made it clear that they don't have the silver to back up the call that's been put to them. If you haven't seen The Big Short, it stars the bloke that used to be married to Jennifer Aniston, Brad Pitt. Stars him. The Big Short. I think it's on one of the streaming services. I can't remember which one. Go and watch it. It'll show you exactly what's happening at the moment and how the shorting of the system is done. But how would you bring down the system, Vince? Because if you're going to bring down a global financial system, you can't just, do a bit today and a bit tomorrow and a bit the next day and clean up all the banks in the world. How would you do it?
That one is beyond my intelligence.
How about we watch this?
While you were all watching presidential elections and digital IDs and all the nonsense from the globalists and the corporations, what you missed was perhaps the biggest news that we've seen in over a decade. Reuters came out just recently and said that regulators are now on high alert, getting ready for massive clearinghouse failure. If you understand monetary systems, clearinghouses are a major component. If we have a look at the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, the DTCC in the United States, and of course the DTC, which handles the derivatives, bonds, settlement and so on. These clearinghouses can represent quadrillions of dollars in settlements and transfers and so on. If these clearinghouses were to fail, you would see the collapse of the monetary systems overnight. Reuters have come out and confirmed it. We now understand that on April 25th, 2024, regulators have been put on high alert in preparation for something called clearinghouse failure. In a post on Twitter, the infamous Ben Rickett, who was represented by Brad Pitt in the movie The Big Short, he came out and said, "They're coming for your stuff. They're coming for your collateral." This is happening and no one even notices it. This is how resets occur. This is major breaking news on a level that you could never even imagine. Everything we heard from David Rogers-Webb about the Great Taking is true. Everything that we were pre-warned about the collapse of the derivatives complex is true. Could you lose your stocks, your shares, your equities, your bonds, your annuities? Yes. Could you see massive bank bail-ins? Yes, you could. Could you see the collapse of small business? Yes. Could you see the collapse of real estate and the loss of all housing titles under something called collateralisation? Yes, you could. You've been forewarned. Reuters have just told us that they are on high alert now. This is a serious, serious event. As I said, in the words of the great Ben Rickett from The Big Short, they're coming for your collateral. They're coming for your stuff. Please make sure you assess all.
I
And
find
we've been
that hard
on
to
that
argue with.
alert. We've been on that alert since January of that time. So that was, 10 months ago.
Yep. So now all the ducks seem to be lined up for this to happen, wouldn't you say? If you're going to shut down a clearinghouse, or if you're going to shut down a global financial system, the clearinghouses have to be done first.
Yeah. I think a lot depends on what happens with this election. I do think this election rides very, very high in the way this world will swing.
It's just a show. I wouldn't be getting too caught up in the actual election. It's just a farce. Absolute farce.
I'm going to watch it.
Oh, I'm going to watch it. I'll be very intrigued to see, the level of the steel that they're putting in, because it has to be greater than last election, and obviously much greater than 2016, where Hillary had paid over $20 million to guarantee she was going to be the president, and so she could start a war with Russia. And just the groundswell of support for Donald Trump blew their algorithm out of the water. They readjusted it, but it was watched in 2020. I don't know why the military didn't end it then, but maybe they needed to see how deep the deep state actually goes. And if you put them in power for 4 years and let them think they've got it, they expose themselves. And clearly, many have done that. Many have done that.
Yeah.
Speaking of also being exposed,
careful.
People in Victoria have been exposed to some of the most horrendous treatment of anywhere in the world. And most of that treatment has been dished out by one man. His name is Dan Andrews, and he has screwed the state 75 different ways from Sunday. Well, right now, he just might be bent over, ready to receive it himself.
In early 2013, a teenage boy named Ryan was riding down a bike path in Blairgowrie on Victoria's Mornington Peninsula. As he was crossing Ridley Street, he was struck by a vehicle and was so seriously injured he had to be airlifted to the Royal Children's Hospital and was lucky to survive. A 36-page assessment conducted by former Assistant Commissioner for Traffic and Operations, Dr. Raymond Shuey, asserted that the teen was struck by a vehicle travelling at speed and on the wrong side of the road. Dr. Shuey also wrote, the statements from both Daniel and Catherine Andrews that their vehicle stopped at Melbourne Road are not consistent with impact consequences, nor the report by witness Brad Morgan of the squeal of tyres prior to impact. Dr. Shuey stated that the investigators failed to account for the available evidence and labelled their conclusions as baseless and unsupported. It's also been reported that there was a delay of several minutes before Mr. Andrews called 000. I have met with a constituent who has played the recording of the 000 call that Mr. Andrews made after the accident, where he stated that he hit Ryan, which contradicts subsequent public statements. I believe that it's in the public interest for this call to be heard, and also believe that the investigation should be reopened.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Gotcha, all right. David Limbrick in Victorian Parliament naming Daniel Andrews, and that audio from that 000 call, I believe, is going to be released. And it will put the lie to everything Dan Andrews has said about this incident, where he has claimed that, well, he wasn't driving, his wife was. It was not a bad accident. Bad enough that the kid needed life-saving surgery and they had to pay him off to keep him quiet. And it's only because he's, still got ongoing pain and suffering, I believe, and the fact that he wants to do the right thing, that this is actually coming out at all. So if anybody's going to need a mental health czar, I got a sneaking suspicion it might be Daniel Andrews, don't you?
Well, I have no idea why he's in the position he's currently in at the moment, as it stands. Right? I wouldn't let him near my kids, period.
God, no. How on earth would anybody think that was a good idea? Especially as he's probably got to drive to work and he may pass a few of them. That's putting their lives in danger, clearly. Hey, this is probably more for Queenslanders than anything, but it may give you an insight on a national scale into the motivations of One Nation. Our dear friends at Cairns News had informed me some time ago, and we're talking, I don't know if it wasn't even the end of last year, but a long time ago, had informed me of discussions that were going on about the Queensland election and how a number of parties were looking at how to combat the, if you like, two-headed turkey that is Labor or is Liberal when it comes to two-party preferred voting in this state. What was planned, what was deeply thought about, what was conscientiously actioned by those people involved in these proceedings was all cut down by One Nation. Let me explain. Far North Queensland is pretty much Katter country. The Katter Australia Party, One Nation, wanted to be involved up there too. There were some independents and obviously the Labor Nationals, Labor Greens and LNP were heavily involved up there as well. Now, Labor have obviously been ripping off Far North Queensland for God knows how long, with the likes of Cynthia Liu running around and essentially, by the sounds of it, selling off our islands to China without any forethought or malice to the country. Just, yeah, you can do that. No worries at all, love. And by the way, stick a bit of money our way, mate. Maybe. I don't know that that's the case. But something dirty has been happening in Far North Queensland for too long. And many people, including the Katters, and I know most people would know of Bob Katter in our federal parliament. Bob's a nice bloke. I caught up with him in February and did an interview with him for the Cairns News. But his son, Robbie Katter, runs here in Queensland as a state parliamentarian. And Robbie's got some pretty strong views on how Australians and Queenslanders in particular are being treated. The plan that in coming together was to make One Nation, the Katter Party, and a couple of others amalgamate and join so that they could present a united front that would give people a real alternative to the two-headed turkey of Labor Greens or Liberal National parties. There was a huge amount of effort put in from all sides to try and get this to happen. But when the decision makers were brought together, one of them, I am led to believe, decided that leadership needed to be decided before anything else, and that she would be the leader. I'm talking about Pauline Hanson. Now, when it was pointed out that, you know, that's sort of putting the cart before the horse, and she was a federal parliamentarian, she wanted to lead the state party, there's a lot of issues with that. But she was adamant, allegedly, that unless she was, or One Nation were the lead party in this amalgamated group of whatever it was going to be called, then she would pull out. And she wasn't given a guarantee that she would lead anything. So One Nation pulled out of the deal. Now, I've seen Malcolm Roberts' video today. He put out one earlier this afternoon, and right at the front of it, he explains what a great job One Nation have done. They didn't win a seat in Queensland. What they did do, though, is put up people in every seat that the Katter Party were running in, and the other parties involved in trying to put this amalgamated group together. What did that do? It diluted the vote. What happens with One Nation's preferences? They go to the Liberal National Party. One Nation gave them 11.5% of the vote.
Hang on a sec. Did they? Because remember that Malcolm Roberts has always aspired that they don't give preferences. They do a suggestion on their cards, but they don't do preferences. So
what they did though was dilute the vote. They took 11% of the vote out of the Katter party and the other parties that were running, right? And therefore, Katter got diminished. One Nation, like Katter Party lost. It was a disastrous election for the Katter Party. They lost seats because people were voting for One Nation and not the Katter Party, splitting the vote, so to speak. And now One Nation didn't win. So, okay, their preferences didn't go anywhere. If that's what happened, their preferences didn't go anywhere. What they did do was get 11.5% or more of the vote and made it useless.
Okay. Now, me being a South Aussie, I have no idea how voting works up in Queensland. So it's just the one house. And do you have to fill out every box on the form?
No. If it's the individual voting, yes, you can just vote party if you want.
Right.
But if you want to vote for individuals, well, that's how.
Right. So even if you're voting party,
it's been a few years since I've seen a polling booth, to be honest. But yeah,
well, you should have seen one just last Saturday.
Oh, I did. I drove past a few of them.
I love that. Yeah, like that little skirt, people. That was a beautiful skirt around the thing. So it still comes back to the question maybe somebody in the chat can answer. Do they have to complete the full row, like all the numbers, even if you're just doing parts?
But at the end of the day, it's semantics. It doesn't matter. I'm talking about the vote that was stolen, the vote that could have given the people of Queensland the power of the crossbench if One Nation had have agreed to do what everybody had been working towards. That 11% would have given the crossbench the power.
Yeah,
instead,
that all been running.
It
was
diluted because of ego.
Yep.
Diluted because of ego is what I hear.
And fear.
And
I
there
believe
is one bloke
fear
involved
will play
in
a part of it because she's got to remember that she's already been butchered once by this system because she was trusting somebody else who was in charge, and she got thrown in jail for it. So,
well, if she was trusting Tony Abbott and co at the time, they're the ones who made sure she got thrown in jail for it. So,
that's who did it, but it was her own. It was inside her own party that were the culprits, right?
Well, she controls the party. I think with an iron. I think she controls the party with an iron fist. So
she does now, but she didn't back then.
Is it her or is it James Ashby? Because I hear his name popping up in many conversations, and most of it's not flash when his name is brought into things. People are not happy at all.
I'm not up to date with where they are now, but way back when she first started One Nation, right, she got severely taken for a ride, falsely imprisoned, right? And the reason why you can call it falsely imprisoned is because they vacated the conviction 3 months later and let her out. That's why she can still run as a senator. Yep. So they've admitted it by their own rights. But even back then, that was one of the wake-up calls for me. Way back then when they first started doing this, I thought that was just wrong.
Yep,
this lady was wrong, a threat, Dusty. And they threw her in jail. And I think
Dusty,
now...
100% on the money. Why do we even have preferences? It just muddies the waters. Couldn't agree more. But
I think we still need preferences, but I don't think we need forced preferences all the way down for every box.
Yeah. And too many people are lazy to sit down and fill that. Ian says he's got lots of information he can't share here. Well, Ian, you can share it with me, carl@vofhq.com. Get a hold of me. Love to see whatever information you got. Tons of it around. Very keen to hear more. George
You can
Christensen's
always
popping up.
upload it to contrib@vofhq as well.com.
That's right. If you want to do it anonymously, contrib.vofhq.com and just upload the files there. Vince is exceptionally good at getting rid of the WAP videos that morons keep trying to send. In fact, he's written a bit of script now, so it doesn't even get into the box. You think it has, but it doesn't. So don't sweat it. It'll all be fun.
I know. Actually, I let the guy waste his internet. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, suck it. Go hard, mate. Go hard.
It
J1.
does not matter.
Yeah, you're 100%. Only a third of Queensland voted. I have heard it is the highest non-voter turnout in Queensland history. Well,
Wow,
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
All
Nobody
right.
trusts the politicians anymore. Nobody believes there will be change. So it's very difficult to motivate yourself to go and stand in a line on a hot Saturday and listen to a whole bunch of Muppets try and force feed shit to you while you steadfastly and myopically march towards that bloody voting booth to put your official mark on the official paperwork in the hope that it's actually going to do something. And I'm afraid Queenslanders don't believe that anymore. They might have if a party had have been born out of all these minor groups.
Yeah.
A party for the people would have been the most powerful thing. And I am in 100% agreement with my friends in far north Queensland at the Cairns News that the failure of One Nation to view that or to understand that they would have had the power, and then it obviously came down to, but who would have that power in that group? Well, that to me is ego. And I'm sick to death of friggin' ego in politics.
Oh, well, yeah.
Just, yeah.
It is interesting. I was literally watching it from over here in South Australia. I was literally amazed that One Nation didn't even get a seat, to be honest. I thought they were a fairly decent big party. And in all fairness, they do still try to look after us Australians. It's a pity that politics got in the way of the common good.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And how often does politics get in the way of the common good? All the bloody time.
Yeah.
Ian. Ian's asking, anyone following Medbeds? Next stupid question, Ian.
Yeah, I'm in line when they turn up. I've got a certain heart issue I'd like to take care of. Thank you very much.
I've got a wrist issue I could have dealt with pretty quickly. Yes, Ian, if you've got any special information on Medbeds, please let me know. But the latest information I have on the Medbeds from someone claiming to be attached to Space Force is that Medbeds are in the country. They are not working. They are not yet enabled to work or able to work. Now, I don't know if that means that somebody's got to just plug in a battery or whether or not there is some prior assembly required, or I don't know. But Medbeds, well, let's call it on planet, but are not operational. That's the latest I've got. But if you've got better, mate, please share it with me, because I have a dear friend who I hope is awake and watching tonight. She may not be. Thank you, folks, for praying for Margie Sedgman. Margie has had 2 wins this week. She had a lumpectomy in her breast and had that removed, which was great. They wanted to take a lot more. She didn't want to do that. She's very happy with the decisions she's made. And, of course, then she had another operation today at the Sunshine Coast, and I got a message from her not long before we started the show that she'd been awake for 4 hours. That was an operation on her hip. I'm pretty confident that it went reasonably well, and I'll look forward to talking to her tomorrow. But that's the update on Margie, everybody. For those of you who kept her in your prayers, I thank you very much. So wonderful stuff. But she needs one of those Medbeds urgently. So, and I have a lot of contacts that claim they know things. Nobody knows anything about Medbeds. So, you know, and then if you want to extrapolate that, you've really got to question what else they know, which I do. So,
I can clearly stipulate that anything I say on this show is purely supposition of my own figment of my imagination.
Yeah. The nearest thing I've found to med beds, and I've just seen somebody here, pet med beds for Sandy's donkeys. My God, wouldn't that be amazing? Pet med beds. There is something close to it. Well, it's not a med bed, but something that is miraculous in what it does for your health. And I've got to say, the X39 patches, I really feel are helping with my arm. I haven't got any Comfrey oil left. If you are the man who sends the Comfrey oil, please get in touch. I need Comfrey oil. But I think, med beds. Please, Lord, let them come. Yeah, the X39, mate. I haven't got one on at the moment. I'm in the middle of my 12-hour off cycle, but they are just the most amazing things. If you've got pain, if you've got injury, those X39s, my God, I can't speak highly enough of them for me, and I know there are many others who've had great effects with them. Sadly, there've been the odd few who've had no benefit or effect at all, but we can't have it all, can we? If you want to check out these patches, you can see that link that I've just put down the bottom of the page. If you write down that link and go to that page, you will be able to buy one packet of these. I think it's $99 and US dollars, but that'll get you through a month. And if you've not had any appreciable change in your condition after a month, you never have to buy them again. But if
It's
they have,
125, Carl.
Okay.
If you join up, you can get them at a cheaper rate, but they've just changed, as Tim said, the plan a bit. For me personally, I don't know if it's doing anything for my heart at all, but I can certainly say one thing: it's so nice to have knees I can actually bend again.
And that's what I've got. My big story isn't about my arm. My big story on the X39s is my right knee. I dislocated my right knee 35 years ago, fell on it on an indoor cricket pitch, and shattered the underneath of the patella. That's your kneecap. Your kneecap's in two pieces. And the bottom bit broke into four. One of those pieces wedged in my cartilage, and I required surgery out. Now, or mid-80s when this happened. I've got a scar that's about 9 inches long down the inside of my right knee. And since they cut into me and removed all those chunks, I have had no feeling in the front of my knees at all, and what feels like a hollow, and I've been unable to kneel, right? Just couldn't kneel. It gave me a horrible feeling in my knee, not a painful one, just a really made you sort of feel sick feeling for many years. And then it was just painful inside the knee, but I couldn't feel anything on the outside. All the nerves to the top of the skin had been cut. So whenever I pushed on my knee, I knew all I could feel was, okay, there's pressure there, but I couldn't feel my finger actually on my skin. Since I've started taking these X39 patches, I have recovered completely the feeling in my right knee. Wow. Completely. I can feel every part of my kneecap, every part of, like even running my finger down the scar, I can feel my finger on my skin and not the pressure of my finger on my skin. Does that make sense? Yep. I haven't felt that in 40 years. So I'm staggered by what it's done. And I can kneel. And I can kneel for an extended period of time. Not that I want to. I mean, I'll drop down my knees when God turns up. Don't worry about that. But, and stay there for as long as he wants. But I'm staggered. It has worked wonders with my knees. And I'm really glad that it's working with yours.
Yeah, it's just amazing on as far as that's concerned. I didn't even click that it had an effect on my knees until that show that you mentioned it. And, of course, went off them because finances stopped me buying them for a little while. Then I ended up getting back through because I do feel better generally when I'm wearing a patch. But straight away, bang, the knees picked up again, able to use them properly, bend down, do whatever, sit on my knees. After crawling around millions of roofs and roof trusses, my knees were knackered.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So effectively, it's just even to do that, I can do a squat, maybe 2, maybe 3 if I'm lucky before the heart says stop that. But at least my knees can do it. So
Yeah,
that's a
great.
start.
I love this.
But speaking of med beds, is there a possibility that to some degree we've actually seen some of the technologies of the med bed comes out? My ex-wife runs a Hunter Bioscan device. And I'll tell you, in all honesty, I go and get a treatment from her, right? And it uses wavelengths to readjust the cells and the components of the cells. And after that, after having a treatment from her, the next 3 days after that, I feel really good.
Okay.
Right? I feel much better than what I would normally do. So I'm just wondering, is that a slice of what these med beds are going to perform once they come out? If they come out, are we already seeing some of that technology sneak out?
Well, there is another example of that. If these rooms that are now popping up, there's one in Melbourne, there's one on the Sunshine Coast. I believe shortly there's going to be one on the Gold Coast. Frequency rooms where you walk in and you sit surrounded by televisions that are beaming out pulsed light and frequency, vibration, noise, and it's a healing center. Now, Cass Smith from Freedom Financial Solutions has had some experience with this in Melbourne. She badly damaged the knuckle on her right finger. Well, it's got to be close to 2 years ago now, I guess. She was walking her dogs, 3 rather large dogs, all attached to one hand. They took off and basically took those 2 fingers with them. Did a huge amount of nerve and tendon damage and knuckle damage to her right hand. And she has been in a lot of pain. She went to Melbourne and went to one of these rooms and I think spent 4 or 5 hours one day and a few hours the next day. And she felt that there was significant improvement in the days afterwards, but it didn't last. She's since been back and done the same thing, but for different reasons. And I believe has had very good effect. So that frequency and vibration, light frequency and sound frequency or vibration healing has been around forever. How many people have seen healing bowls? The sound healing bowls.
And something to do with the frequency of a bell as well.
Yes, the frequency of a bell. And that's why many, many years ago, a lot of churches had their real bells removed. Now they just play recordings of bells from the bell towers.
Not quite the same thing. It doesn't do the vibration correctly.
That's right. There's no vibration. You're not feeling the bell, but you are hearing it. At any rate, what time? Oh, look, we've been gone over already. That was a fast show. It is a Friday night. I don't want to hang you up too late. And what are your plans for the weekend? Are you doing anything wild and outrageous?
Fixing somebody else's computer. But we've actually managed to have a little bit of a bonfire in the backyard and get rid of some rubbish and planted some tomato bushes. So we just got them set up. So I should be right for tomatoes at least. And at worst case scenario, if they go rotten, I know some people I can throw them at.
Very true. I know a lot of people grow tomatoes in Adelaide, or at least I think they're tomatoes in South Australia, at least, not just Adelaide. If they're not tomatoes, it looks suspiciously like tomatoes.
Same leaf pattern, or very close.
Yeah. So anyway, enough of that. You have yourself a great weekend and don't do anything loud and outrageous. We should mention to folks too, there are still a small amount of sites available for the My Place weekend getaway in Victoria coming at the end of this month, 29th, 30th and the 1st of December, not far out of Echuca at a magnificent camping resort. So if you've got a caravan, if you've got a tent, if you've got a motorhome, if you've got an HR license and live in Queensland and want to come for a drive, then why don't you come and join us? get a hold of the girls at My Place Vic West, Truth Seeker TV. Becky O can put you onto Doris and everybody else. Or if you get a hold of me, I will put you onto Doris. And get yourself there. It's going to be a big weekend. I will be there. Whether or not I am here in the bus or not will depend on how well this gets fixed in the interim period. I've got about 3 weeks before I have to make that decision, I suppose, to leave, 2.5 weeks. At this stage, I wouldn't be hopeful of driving down, but I will be coming down. So one way or the other, I will be there. That means I just need to beg a bed out of you and your little abode that you've got at the camp, because you've got a hut, haven't you, from memory?
Yeah. I organised the hut, and luckily for you, I haven't rented out the other room yet.
Woohoo!
So,
thank you, brother.
Well, now you can, for the camp out, you can also go and put an application through to come on myplaceaustralia.org. If you go there and have a look, there's a section to do with the states, and it's in Victoria, and there's a form you can fill out, and the girls will get back in touch with you. Come and stay at the Donkey Sanctuary. Whereabouts is don't answer that question. I'll find out from Carl, because if we've got to do a trip back to Mount Gambier after that, and if he's hanging around, I'm going to tow him behind the car. I mean, put him in the car. And we might drop past, Sandy, if that's the case.
We will very definitely be dropping past.
Okay.
I've been told. Without locating the sanctuary too closely. And for people who don't know why I don't want to tell you where the donkey sanctuary is, it's because fucking Chinese will come and steal the donkeys and strip them of their skin while they're alive for a substance under their skin that they believe, I don't know, will give them a hard on or make them look youthful or whatever. But the donkey has to be alive while they peel it to get it. And they are evil, evil bastards who will come and steal the donkeys from the property, rustle them if they know where they are, because at any given time, the donkey sanctuary could have 50 to 300 donkeys there. And well, maybe not 300. I might be exaggerating, but as typically guarded location. Let me just say, if we were close to Port Macquarie, we would be semi-close to where it is. Does that help? No.
Yeah, probably. I'll work it out. My brain will get there eventually.
But we will figure it out. 101 at the moment, Sandy says. So she's got 101 donkeys. I was only talking to her the other day about Josie the Joey, and she'd been out that day to go and collect 2 more, I think. And one more that's about the right size and the right age for May May, who is the star of the Donkey Sanctuary, because she was the star of the Simpsons extravaganza, and I don't mean the Bart Simpson. I'm talking about Simpson and his donkey World War I kind of extravaganza thing that was put on a couple of years ago in Queensland for the Royal Show up here, or the Ekka, and I think it went to Sydney as well from memory. There was a couple of trial shows up at Caloundra as well, but she was the star of the show. She was Simpson's donkey. So May May, and she was born on the property. I think I've shown photos of May May when she was just, but a kneecap high to Baz. You've never seen too much cuter than a little baby donkey. Well, until you see a little baby wallaby. They're pretty cute. I got to tell you, pretty cute.
Upon saying that, I may just jump out of here.
All right, mate. Have yourself a good one, and we shall speak over the weekend.
Yeah, mate. Catch you there.
Cheers. That's Vincenzo and his wave. You have a good weekend. Go hard, do the great things that we all know that you can do, and try and avoid the stupid things that we all know that we can do from time to time, like fall over your own feet and break your friggin' wrist. Try and avoid that if you can. Just goes to show not all the dickheads on the road. Sometimes they're wearing the shoes you happen to be in.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!